What if I told you that everything you believe about power is backwards? The strongest tree in the forest is not the one that fights the wind, it's the one that bends. The mightiest river carves through solid rock, not through force, but through persistent, gentle flow. The most feared warrior enters battle already victorious, not because of his sword, but because of his silence. You live in a world that teaches you the opposite. Push harder, fight more, scream louder, force your way through. Yet here you are, exhausted, depleted, further from your goals than when you started. Why? Because you've been swimming against the current of your own nature. True transformation begins with a paradox that your mind cannot initially accept. The way up is down. The way forward is inward. The way to control everything is to control nothing except yourself. Think about water for a moment. Water never argues with the rock. It simply flows around it, over it, through it. Eventually the rock surrenders, not because water is aggressive, but because water is persistent in its softness. This is the nature of real power. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. You have been conditioned to believe that strength means tension, that success requires struggle, that victory demands violence against yourself and others. This conditioning runs so deep that when you try to relax, your mind rebels. When you attempt stillness, chaos erupts. When you practice gentleness, you feel weak. But weakness is not gentleness. Weakness is the inability to choose your response. Weakness is being pulled by every emotion, every thought, every external circumstance, like a leaf in a hurricane. True strength is the capacity to remain centered when the storm rages all around you. Listen to your breath right now, not controlling it, just listening. This breath entered your body without your permission. It will leave without your command. Yet without it you would cease to exist. This is your first lesson in surrender. You are already living in partnership with forces greater than your conscious will. Most people spend their entire lives trying to swim upstream against this current of natural flow. They exhaust themselves fighting battles that don't need to be fought. They create resistance where none exists. They turn allies into enemies through the sheer force of their opposition to what is. Right now, as you listen to these words, your heart is beating, your blood is flowing, your cells are regenerating, your hair is growing, your body is performing thousands of complex operations without consulting your conscious mind. Yet somehow you believe you must micromanage your life, your emotions, your circumstances with the same forceful control. This is the root of all suffering. The illusion that you are separate from the intelligence that runs your body, the wisdom that grows the trees, the force that moves the planets. You have forgotten that you are not apart from nature, you are nature itself, temporarily organized in human form. The moment you recognize this truth, everything changes, not gradually, but instantly. Because you stop fighting against yourself. You stop treating your thoughts as enemies to be defeated. You stop seeing your emotions as problems to be solved. You begin to work with the grain of your being instead of against it. But here lies the challenge. Your mind has been programmed to resist this simplicity. It has been trained to complicate, to analyze, to create problems where none exist. It mistakes activity for progress, noise for importance, struggle for strength. Your mind believes that if you're not fighting, you're not living. If you're not stressed, you're not successful. If you're not worried, you're not responsible. These beliefs feel real because you've repeated them so many times they've become automatic. But automatic is not the same as true. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. You are not your emotions. You are the space in which emotions arise and pass away. You are not your circumstances. You are the consciousness that experiences circumstances. This awareness, this witnessing presence, is your true power. It cannot be threatened. It cannot be diminished. It cannot be taken away. It exists before your first thought in the morning and remains after your last thought at night. When you operate from this awareness, you move through life like water moves through stone, effortlessly, inevitably, without violence but with complete certainty. You don't need to announce your presence because your presence announces itself. You don't need to prove your worth because your worth is self-evident. Think of a master craftsman shaping wood. He doesn't force the chisel through the grain. He finds the natural lines of strength and weakness. He works with the wood's inherent nature, not against it. The result is not struggle, but art, not effort, but elegance. This is how you must approach your own transformation, not as a war to be won, but as a dance to be danced, not as a problem to be solved, but as a skill to be cultivated, not as a destination to reach, but as a way of moving through the world. The mind that got you where you are cannot take you where you want to go. This mind operates on outdated programming. It runs on fear-based software, installed during your earliest years, when survival depended on fitting in, avoiding danger, and pleasing others. This programming worked when you were young and vulnerable, but now it has become your prison. You walk through life wearing invisible chains forged from the beliefs of people who never lived the life you're trying to create. You carry invisible weights made from the expectations of those who settled for less than their potential. You fight invisible battles against enemies that exist only in your imagination. Breaking free doesn't require force, it requires recognition. The moment you see the chains, they begin to dissolve. The moment you recognize the programming, you remember that you are the programmer. The moment you witness the automatic patterns, you reclaim your power to choose. But choice is not what you think it is. Real choice doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the gap between stimulus and response. It happens in the space between the thought and the action. It happens in the that most people never notice because they're moving too fast to see it. This is sacred ground. It's where transformation lives. It's where freedom dwells. It's where your true power awakens. Not the power to control outcomes, but the power to choose your response to any outcome. Most people live their entire lives without ever visiting this sacred. They move from reaction to reaction, driven by forces they don't understand, toward destinations they never consciously chose. They mistake this reactive existence for living, this unconscious repetition for growth, this endless busyness for purpose. You can choose differently. Right now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances change, not when you feel ready. Now, because readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And decision is not a thought, it's an action. The action required is simple, but not easy. It's the action of stopping, of becoming still, of allowing the dust to settle so you can see clearly. Most people are afraid of stillness because in stillness they meet themselves without distraction. And what they find there often challenges everything they believed about who they are and what they're capable of. But you are not most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here, listening to these words, ready to challenge the very foundations of how you've been living. You are someone who has grown tired of the exhaustion, weary of the struggle, ready to surrender the illusion of control for the reality of power. This surrender is not defeat, it's victory over the part of you that needs to win every small battle at the cost of losing the war. It's triumph over the that infuses motion with progress, volume with authority, complexity with wisdom. True wisdom is elegant in its simplicity.
True power is quiet in its confidence. True strength is flexible in its responses. These qualities don't make you weak, they make you unstoppable. Not because you force your way through obstacles, but because you find the path of least resistance that leads to your desired destination.
Watch a cat stalking its prey. Perfect stillness, perfect patience, perfect timing. When it moves, there is no wasted motion, no unnecessary force, no dramatic display, just precise, efficient action that achieves its purpose. This is the model for conscious living minus alert relaxation, followed by decisive action. Your life right now is the sum total of all your previous choices, both conscious and unconscious. If you want a different life, you must make different choices. But you cannot make different choices from the same level of consciousness that created your current circumstances. You must rise to a higher level of awareness. This rising doesn't happen through effort. It happens through letting go. Letting go of the need to be right. Letting go of the need to be in control. Letting go of the need to understand everything before you act. Letting go of the stories you tell yourself about why change is difficult, why transformation takes time, why you're different from everyone who has successfully made this shift. The truth is you're not different. You're human. And humans have an extraordinary capacity for rapid transformation when they align with natural principles instead of fighting against them. Every spiritual tradition, every philosophy of excellence, every system of personal mastery teaches the same fundamental truths. The power you seek is already within you. But this power has been buried under layers of conditioning, clouded by years of misdirection, weakened by decades of misuse. Like a sword left in water, it has gathered rust. But rust is not permanent. With the right attention, the right tools, the right approach, the gleaming metal underneath can be restored. You are that sword. Your consciousness is the metal. Your attention is the polishing cloth. Your commitment to this process is the steady hand that will restore you to your original sharpness, your natural brilliance, your inherent power. The world does not need another person trying to be powerful by forcing their will upon circumstances. The world needs you to become powerful by aligning your will with wisdom, your actions with awareness, your movement with the natural flow of life itself. This alignment is not passive. It's not about becoming a doormat or avoiding challenges. It's about becoming so centered, so rooted, so connected to your deeper intelligence that you respond to every situation from your highest wisdom rather than your most primitive programming. When you operate from this place, you don't need to shout to be heard. Your presence speaks louder than words. You don't need to fight to win. Your clarity dissolves opposition before it fully forms. You don't need to chase success. Your authentic action attracts the outcomes that align with your highest good. This is not mystical theory. This is practical reality. Every person who has achieved anything of lasting value has learned to work with these principles, whether they could articulate them or not. They've learned to find the still point within the moving world. They've learned to act from centeredness rather than reactivity. They've learned to lead from presence rather than pressure. You have the same capacity. You have the same potential. You have the same fundamental nature as every great leader, every master craftsman, every realized being who has ever walked this earth. The only difference is the degree to which they've learned to work with their nature instead of against it. Starting now, your transformation begins not with what you add to your life, but with what you're willing to remove. Not with what you do more of, but with what you stop doing. Not with what you achieve, but with what you release. The prison door has been open all along. You've simply been too busy fighting the walls to notice. Now that you see the door, what will you do? Most people, even when they recognize their freedom, continue to sit in the same corner where they've always sat. They've grown comfortable with their discomfort. They've made friends with their limitations. They've built an identity around their struggles. But you are different. You are ready to walk through that door. You are ready to step into the mastery that has always been your birthright. This mastery rests upon 4 pillars, 4 foundations of transformation that will support your new way of being. The first pillar is sacred stillness. Not the stillness of death, but the stillness of deep aliveness. Not the stillness of emptiness, but the stillness of infinite potential. This is the stillness from which all true action springs. Right now, can you feel the stillness beneath your thoughts? Can you sense the quiet space between your heartbeats? Can you touch the silence that holds all sound? This stillness is not something you create. It's something you return to. It has been waiting for you your entire life. Your breath is the doorway to this stillness. Not the breath you control, but the breath that breathes you. Watch it now. Feel how it enters without effort, fills without force, leaves without resistance. This is your teacher. This is your guide. This is your path back to your natural state. But you have been trained to fear stillness. You have been conditioned to fill every moment with activity, every silence with noise, every gap with distraction. You mistake this constant motion for living, this endless doing for being alive. Yet the most alive moments of your life have always been the still ones. Remember the last time you felt truly at peace. You weren't moving, you weren't thinking, you weren't doing, you were simply being present, aware, complete. In that moment you touched your true nature. In that moment you tasted real power. This power is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It simply is. Like the sun, it doesn't need to prove its brightness. Like the mountain, it doesn't need to prove its strength. Like the ocean, it doesn't need to prove its depth. When you establish yourself in sacred stillness, you become like these forces of nature. Your presence becomes undeniable, without being aggressive. Your influence becomes inevitable, without being forceful. Your power becomes unmistakable, without being loud. But how do you cultivate this stillness in a world designed to keep you moving? How do you find silence in a life filled with noise? How do you access peace when chaos surrounds you? The answer is simpler than your mind wants to believe. You stop trying to make it happen and allow it to be. You stop adding more and start taking away less. You stop seeking stillness outside yourself and recognize the stillness that is your essential nature. Every morning before you check your messages, before you plan your day, before you engage with the world, you return to this stillness. Not for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or any prescribed amount of time. You return until you remember who you are beneath all the roles you play, all the masks you wear, all the stories you tell yourself. This remembering changes everything. When you begin your day from stillness, you move through the world differently. Challenges don't disturb your core. Problems don't shake your foundation. Drama doesn't pull you into its web. You respond from depth rather than surface, from wisdom rather than reaction. The second pillar builds naturally from the first, the warrior's response. But this is not the warrior of battle. This is the warrior of wisdom. Not the fighter who reacts to every provocation, but the master who chooses his battles with precision. Most people live their lives in a constant state of reaction. Someone speaks harshly, they speak harshly back. Traffic moves slowly, they become frustrated. Plans change, they become anxious. They have given their power away to every circumstance, every person, every situation they encounter. But you are learning a different way. You are learning that between every stimulus and response lies a choice. In that choice lies your freedom. In that freedom lies your power. In that power lies your transformation.
Think of a master archer drawing his bow. He doesn't release the arrow the moment he feels tension. He holds the string, feels the power building, aims with precision, then releases at the perfect moment. This is how you must approach every situation in your life. When someone criticizes you, can you hold the tension without immediately defending? When someone disappoints you, can you feel the emotion without immediately attacking? When circumstances don't meet your expectations, can you experience the frustration without immediately trying to control?
This holding, this conscious, this deliberate gap between what happens to you and how you respond, this is where your power lives. This is where transformation happens. This is where you reclaim your sovereignty. But the untrained mind resists this. It wants immediate action, instant gratification, quick resolution. It mistakes patience for passivity, restraint for weakness, consideration for indecision. It has been programmed to believe that the fastest response is the best response, yet every master knows the opposite is true. The most powerful response is often the most considered response. The most effective action often follows the longest. The greatest strength often manifests as apparent stillness. Watch how a lion hunts. Perfect patience, perfect timing. When it moves, there is no wasted energy, no unnecessary drama, no emotional reaction, just pure conscious action directed toward a specific outcome. This is your model for living consciously. You don't need to respond to every email immediately. You don't need to answer every question instantly. You don't need to solve every problem the moment it appears. You can choose your responses based on wisdom rather than impulse, strategy rather than emotion, long-term benefit rather than short-term relief. This doesn't make you slow. It makes you precise. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you actively conscious in a world of unconscious reactivity. The third pillar emerges from this conscious response: present awareness. This is not the awareness that analyzes and judges and compares. This is the awareness that simply observes, accepts, and acts from a place of clear seeing. Most people live their lives in mental time travel. They spend their mornings reliving yesterday's mistakes. They spend their afternoons worrying about tomorrow's challenges. They spend their evenings regretting what they didn't accomplish today. They are everywhere except where life is actually happening, right here, right now. But this moment is the only moment you have real power. This moment is the only moment you can make a choice. This moment is the only moment you can take action. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Only now is real. When you anchor your attention in the present moment, everything shifts. Colors become more vivid. Sounds become more clear. Sensations become more alive. You stop living life through the filter of your thoughts and start experiencing life directly through your senses. Feel the weight of your body right now. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Feel the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the aliveness flowing through every cell. This is reality. Everything else is commentary. Your thoughts about what happened yesterday are not happening now. Your worries about what might happen tomorrow are not real now. Your judgments about how things should be different are not changing anything now. Only your present awareness, your conscious attention, your direct engagement with what is actually here can create transformation. This awareness is like water. It takes the shape of whatever container it enters, but it never loses its essential nature. When you bring present awareness to anger, the anger transforms. When you bring present awareness to fear, the fear dissolves. When you bring present awareness to confusion, clarity emerges. But you must learn to trust your direct experience over your mental interpretation of that experience. Your mind will tell you stories about what's happening. Your awareness will show you what's actually happening. These are often completely different things. Your mind says this person is trying to hurt me. Your awareness notices tension in your chest and defensiveness in your posture. Your mind says I'm not good enough. Your awareness notices self-judgment and physical contraction. Your mind says I can't handle this. Your awareness notices capability and inner strength. Which will you trust? Which perception will guide your actions? Which source of information will you use to make your choices? The person who trusts their mental stories lives in a world of interpretations, assumptions, and projections. The person who trusts their direct awareness lives in a world of actual experience, real information, and practical possibility. This shift from thinking about life to experiencing life changes everything. Problems that seemed overwhelming when viewed through the lens of thought become manageable when met with direct awareness. Challenges that appeared impossible when filtered through fear become opportunities. When approached with present moment clarity, the fourth and final pillar completes the foundation, internal sovereignty. This is the recognition that you are the ruler of your inner kingdom. Not a ruler who controls through force, but a ruler who leads through wisdom. Not a dictator who suppresses rebellion, but a sovereign who transforms conflict into harmony. Most people have never learned to govern themselves. They let their emotions run wild like unruly children. They allow their thoughts to chatter like undisciplined servants. They permit their impulses to direct their actions like advisors who have never proven their wisdom. But you are learning to be different. You are learning that true leadership begins with self-leadership. True mastery begins with self-mastery. True power begins with the ability to direct your own inner forces toward your chosen outcomes. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or controlling. It means becoming conscious and responsive. It means treating your emotions as information rather than instructions. It means seeing your thoughts as suggestions rather than commands. It means recognizing your impulses as options rather than obligations. When anger arises, you don't suppress it or express it unconsciously. You feel it fully, understand its message, then choose your response. When fear appears, you don't run from it or surrender to it. You acknowledge its presence, receive its wisdom, then act from courage. When desire emerges, you don't deny it or indulge it blindly. You recognize its energy, understand its purpose, then direct it consciously. This is the art of internal sovereignty. Working with your natural forces instead of against them, channeling your innate energy instead of wasting them, aligning your inner resources instead of letting them work at cross purposes. Think of a symphony conductor. He doesn't try to eliminate any instrument. He doesn't pretend some sounds are better than others. He takes all the different L's, all the varied tones, all the diverse energies and weaves them into a coherent, beautiful expression. This is what you must do with your inner life. Your anger has its place. It can fuel your commitment to justice. Your fear has its purpose. It can sharpen your attention to danger. Your sadness has its role. It can deepen your compassion for others. Your joy has its function. It can energize your service to life. But these emotions must serve your higher purpose, not become your master. They must inform your choices, not make your choices. They must contribute to your growth, not control your behavior. This mastery doesn't happen overnight. It develops through consistent practice, patient observation, and gentle correction. Like training a horse, you must be firm but not harsh, persistent but not forcing, clear but not rigid. Every moment offers you the opportunity to practice this sovereignty. Every interaction gives you the chance to respond from your center rather than your surface.
Every challenge provides you the space to choose wisdom over reactivity. When someone speaks to you with disrespect, you can feel the anger without becoming the anger. When circumstances fail to meet your expectations, you can experience disappointment without drowning in disappointment. When uncertainty clouds your path, you can acknowledge confusion without being paralyzed by confusion. This is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to choose who you want to be in every moment. Not the freedom from all difficulty, but the freedom to meet difficulty with dignity. Not the freedom from all pain, but the freedom to transform pain into wisdom. These four pillars: sacred stillness, the warrior's response, present awareness, and internal sovereignty, form the foundation of your new way of being. They support each other, they strengthen each other, they complete each other.
From stillness comes the space for conscious response. From conscious response comes present awareness. From present awareness comes internal sovereignty. From internal sovereignty comes deeper stillness. This is the spiral of transformation, ever ascending, ever deepening, ever expanding. But pillars alone do not make a building. You must now learn to construct your life upon this foundation. You must learn to apply these principles in the practical world of relationships, work, challenges, and daily existence. You must learn to live as the master you are becoming. 180 days, 4,320 hours. This is the time frame for your complete transformation. Not because transformation requires 6 months, but because lasting integration does. True change happens in an instant. Embodying that change takes practice. Why do most people fail to transform their lives? They try to change everything at once. They attempt to rebuild their entire existence in a single day. They expect immediate perfection from a mind and body that have spent decades forming different patterns. This approach guarantees failure. But you will take a different path. You will move like water, persistently, gently, inevitably. You will change slowly enough that your resistance cannot mobilize, quickly enough that momentum builds. You will transform one moment at a time, one choice at a time, one breath at a time. The first month is about establishing sacred stillness as your new default state. Not achieving perfect meditation, but learning to return to center whenever you notice you've left it. Your goal is not to eliminate all mental noise, but to recognize the silence that exists beneath it. Each morning, before you engage with the external world, you spend time in conscious stillness, not fighting your thoughts, but watching them pass like clouds across the sky of your awareness. Not trying to feel peaceful, but resting in the peace that is your natural state when you stop creating disturbance. Some days will feel effortless, other days will feel impossible. This variation is normal. This inconsistency is expected. This difficulty is not failure. It's the mind's attempt to maintain its old patterns. You persist not because it's easy, but because consistency creates capacity. Watch what happens to your daily experience when you begin each day from stillness. Notice how differently you respond to traffic, to criticism, to unexpected changes. Observe how much more space you have between provocation and reaction. Feel how your presence affects others without you having to do anything different. By the end of month 1, stillness is no longer something you do, mind, it's something you are. It becomes your home base, your refuge, your source of power. From this foundation, everything else becomes possible. Month 2 introduces the warrior's response into your daily interactions. Now you practice the conscious in real-world situations. When your boss speaks harshly, you breathe before responding. When your partner disappoints you, you feel the emotion without immediately expressing it. When plans fall apart, you experience the frustration without adding mental drama to it. This is not suppression. This is consciousness. You're not hiding your reactions, you're choosing your responses. You're not becoming passive, you're becoming precise. You're not avoiding conflict, you're engaging with wisdom instead of reactivity. Each situation becomes a training ground. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to practice sovereignty. Each challenge becomes a chance to strengthen your capacity for conscious choice. You begin to see that every person who triggers you is actually your teacher, showing you exactly where your work lies. The untrained mind will rebel against this approach. It will insist that immediate reaction is authentic, that calculated response is fake, that pausing to consider is weakness. This is the old programming, asserting itself. You acknowledge it without obeying it. Notice how your relationships begin to shift when you stop reacting automatically. Notice how conflicts that once escalated now resolve more easily. Notice how people start treating you differently when you respond from centeredness rather than defensiveness. Notice how much energy you conserve when you're not constantly fighting battles that don't need to be fought. Month 3 expands your present moment awareness beyond formal practice into continuous living. You begin to wake up from the trance of mental time travel. You start to live in your body instead of in your head. You learn to gather information from your senses instead of your thoughts. Walking becomes meditation, eating becomes mindfulness, listening becomes presence, working becomes conscious action. You stop doing things while thinking about other things. You stop being somewhere while wishing you were somewhere else. You stop living in preparation for life and start actually living. This shift is profound but subtle. Others may not notice the difference, but you feel it in every cell. Food tastes more vivid. Colors appear more bright. Sounds become more clear. Physical sensations intensify. You realize you've been living behind a veil of mental abstraction, and now you're tasting reality directly. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your experience. When attention scatters, life feels fragmented. When attention focuses, life becomes coherent. When attention rests in the present moment, life reveals its inherent richness. Problems that seemed overwhelming when viewed through the lens of future projection become manageable when met with present moment awareness. Challenges that appeared impossible when filtered through past conditioning become opportunities when approached with fresh perception. Month 4 establishes internal sovereignty as your natural way of being. You no longer ask, "How do I feel?" but rather, "What do I choose?" You no longer wonder, "What should I do?" but instead, "What serves my highest good?" You no longer question, "Can I handle this?" but recognize, "I am capable of conscious response to whatever appears." Your emotions become allies instead of adversaries. Anger becomes fuel for positive change. Fear becomes information about what requires attention. Sadness becomes compassion for the human condition. Joy becomes energy for service to life. You stop being pushed around by moods. You stop being hijacked by impulses. You stop being controlled by circumstances. Not because you've become rigid or unfeeling, but because you've learned to work skillfully with the forces within you. This doesn't mean you never feel difficult emotions. It means you relate to them differently. Instead of being overwhelmed by anxiety, you notice anxiety arising and choose how to respond to it. Instead of being consumed by anger, you feel the energy of anger and direct it toward constructive action. People around you begin to notice something different. You seem more stable, more reliable, more trustworthy. Not because you've become perfect, but because you've become conscious. You respond from depth rather than surface, from wisdom rather than reactivity, from choice rather than compulsion. Month 5 integrates all 4 pillars into a seamless way of being. Stillness, conscious response, present awareness, and internal sovereignty flow together like streams joining a river. You no longer have to remember to practice these principles.
They have become your natural way of moving through the world. Challenges still arise, but they don't destabilize you. Conflicts still occur, but they don't consume you. Unexpected changes still happen, but they don't overwhelm you. You've developed what the ancient traditions call equanimity, the ability to remain centered, regardless of external circumstances. This is not indifference. This is not detachment. This is engaged presence without attachment to outcomes. You care deeply about everything while being devastated by nothing. You participate fully in life while maintaining perspective on the temporary nature of all experiences. Your actions become more effective because they arise from clarity rather than confusion. Your relationships become more harmonious because you engage from love rather than need. Your work becomes more fulfilling because it flows from purpose rather than obligation.
You begin to understand that transformation is not a destination but a way of traveling. Mastery is not something you achieve, but something you embody. Awakening is not a state you attain, but a recognition of what you've always been. Month 6 completes the cycle while beginning a new spiral. You have not become someone different. Minus you have remembered who you always were beneath the layers of conditioning. You have not gained new powers. You have reclaimed the power that was always yours. You have not reached enlightenment. You have awakened to the enlightenment that is your natural state. But this is not the end. This is graduation from unconscious living to conscious living. This is your initiation into a life of continuous awakening, endless growth, perpetual transformation. The skills you've developed will continue to deepen. The awareness you've cultivated will continue to expand. The mastery you've embodied will continue to evolve. Now you move through life differently. You walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their true power. You speak with the gentle authority of someone who has mastered themselves. You act with the natural efficiency of someone who moves in harmony with life's deeper currents. When others ask what has changed, you may find it difficult to explain. The transformation is too fundamental for words, too complete for simple description. You have not added something to your life. You have removed everything that was never truly you. You see the world through new eyes. But these are actually your original eyes, cleared of the cataracts of conditioning. You move through life with new grace. But this is actually your natural grace freed from the tensions of resistance. You respond to challenges with new wisdom, but this is actually your innate wisdom, no longer clouded by fear and reactivity. This is what 6 months of conscious practice creates. Not a perfect person, but a present person. Not someone without problems, but someone who relates to problems with wisdom. Not someone who never experiences difficulty, but someone who transforms difficulty into growth. The path you have traveled returns you to where you started, but now you see it with completely different eyes. The paradox with which this teaching began, minus that true power comes from surrender, is no longer a concept you understand intellectually. It has become a reality you live experientially. You have learned to bend like the tree in the wind, to flow like water around obstacles, to rest like the mountain in its unshakable presence. You have discovered that the strongest position is the most flexible position, that the most powerful action is the most conscious action, that the deepest wisdom is the simplest wisdom. The prison door was always open. Now you live in the freedom you were always meant to inhabit. The power you sought was always within you. Now you express the mastery you were always meant to embody. The peace you craved was always your true nature. Now you rest in the stillness you were always meant to know. This is your inheritance. This is your birthright. This is your destiny. Not because it was predetermined, but because you chose it. You chose to walk through the open door. You chose to reclaim your sovereignty. You chose to remember who you truly are. And in remembering yourself, you give others permission to remember themselves. In mastering yourself, you show others that self-mastery is possible. In transforming yourself, you contribute to the transformation of the world. The journey continues. The spiral ascends. The awakening deepens. But now you know the way. Now you trust the process. Now you embody the truth that has guided every master, every sage, every awakened being throughout history. The power to transform your life lies not in changing your circumstances, but in changing your relationship to your circumstances. You are no longer at the mercy of external forces. You are no longer a victim of unconscious patterns. You are no longer a prisoner of conditioning. You are free. You are sovereign. You are awake. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your legend.